Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Rage, and we are back today to go over all of my progression through Dark Dimension 8 in regards to the number of attempts and the teams I use, as well as regrets overall. But yeah, this Dark Dimension is definitely a lot easier than the previous Dark Dimensions that we've had, and I just wanted to further illustrate that. You'll see in the attempts that we don't even really fully use up maxed characters and team levels, just because, remember, the big bottleneck for Dark Dimension 8 has been the purple ISO 8, which obviously has been, coming through in the way of events, but as well, Siege on Battle World is going to be that consistent game mode that's going to reward the ISO 8 ions for purple. But without further ado, guys, let me show you all my different attempts and the different teams I used up until the moment that I did unlock Odin in the last week here. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, this is the very first node here. Utilize Apocalypse, Scroll, Thanos Endgame, Robbie Reyes, as well as Penny Parker. And really, I wanted to use a combination of characters that were adding value to my current arena meta, in addition to some city characters I would be using anyways, as City Hero is the next section. The one thing I want to point out, guys, and as kind of like a little mistake that I made along the way, now that we've seen all the different progressions and success through this game mode, is that you can actually get the first two nodes done here with a full Spire Society team. So for myself, I wasn't aware of that when I first started. I was thinking more about, the value I can get in arena meta, hence why, bringing in a character like, Super Scroll and so forth would help me in other game modes. But if you guys are trying to conserve ISO 8 ions, you can actually use the same Spire Society team, the full team for the first 4 nodes. So nodes 1, nodes 2, and as well as nodes 3, nodes 4 requiring City Hero. If I were to go back, those would be the characters I use, especially if you're trying to conserve ISO 8 ions. That's definitely your best bang for buck. I'm just not too sure if they would be able to one-shot like the same way that I utilize these teams. But, regardless, the first 2 nodes are very easy. So bringing in these meta characters and teams, I was able to actually get the one-shot for both these nodes, which then propelled us into the next section, being City Hero. And now that we've wrapped up these nodes, it's become very clear that the City Hero nodes is actually designed to target and take down your Robbie. So if you're watching this again beforehand, guys, although I love Robbie as a character, he's still in my eyes going to be valuable in the future for future Dark Dimensions. They've designed the nodes where the enemies actually target Robbie Reyes. So if you bring him in, be prepared that your Robbie might drop, and it is going to basically be the Spire Society show. For myself, I did bring in Big Time Spider-Man just because he was already leveled up from Dark Dimension 7, but you'll see later on in the next node that I slotted him out to bring in the 4th member, being Pav, as part of the Spire Society. Regardless, Spire Society is going to be the key for you getting through these City Hero nodes, especially that synergy with Peter B and Penny Parker, them giving each other energy, the heals and sustain. You got some decent bleed and so forth damage from Noir, so that's definitely helpful there. But yeah, Robbie, unfortunately, was a non-factor for me, and really I leaned heavily into the Spire Society team. As you can see here, this is when I brought in Pav, taking the 4 attacks for the next node as well. So basically 3 attacks on the first node for City Hero, and then 4 attacks for the second node here. So overall, not too bad, because when you're getting consistently 3 to 5 attacks, that in my eyes is good speed and progression, as it's not taking you overly too long. And again, we did have some characters here like Pav where they weren't brought up all the way, and that's, again, we were just watching that ISO 8 bottleneck, but as well the synergy was what was most important. Okay, City Villains was probably the most messy for me because I was trying to figure out what worked and what didn't, and I made a couple of mistakes and boo-boos along the way too. So remember, if you're planning to bring the Superior 6, Sinister 6 characters, don't make this mistake where I brought in Mysterio thinking that he was going to get the value of 2 Superior 6 characters. But if you do the head count there, right, my Red Goblin and Carnage took up 2 spots, and then only Lizard was actually the Superior 6 character. So I didn't really get the full Mass Blind AoE that Mysterio really shined on. And on top of that too, if you are planning to bring in Hive Mind for this section, make sure your Hive Mind characters are higher than Gear Tier 18. I definitely felt the shortfall here, but I still want to showcase for you guys that, look, even though Vulture was the only Gear Tier 19 character in this team, we still got the job done for this first node with 4 attacks, using 4 characters that were Gear Tier 18, and actually Mysterio being part of that Sinister 6, lacking that synergy there. So at this point, I wanted to correct my mistake. So I did actually have Kraven ready to go, and I fully upgraded him to the ISO 8 purple. And as you can see, this now slight change here is 4-piece and superior synergistic synergy, as well as Red Goblin staying put, because I still like the AoE damage he did with a bit of sustain. And we were able to get 5 attacks in for the second node for City Villains. I think this is probably going to be one of the more trickier nodes, but thankfully, with the powerful Sinister Superior 6 synergies, we were able to utilize Mysterio as being a very key piece. And there's good control of Vulture and Kraven, and Lizard had some good protection as well. But again, guys, keep in mind, 4 out of these 5 characters were only gear tier 18, so I didn't need them maxed out. And in my opinion, 5 attacks on this node that's typically harder than the other ones was still very, very reasonable in my eyes here. So hopefully you guys are able to learn from these mistakes as well. Next up, we do have Mission 7 here being the first global hero node. And for myself, there was honestly a lot of uncertainty which teams worked and didn't, but for me, I found that the Extreme X-Men team with Black Knight got this done with very reasonable attacks. And again, the nice thing about this was that I actually brought in many of the Dark Dimension 7 characters I already utilized. So that synergy with Nightcrawler, Forge, and Sunspot, also having the opportunity to replenish energy, a revive in place. I mean, I just had really good attempts there, as you can see. That's 4 attacks on the first node and then 3 attacks to wrap things up here, and very, very reasonable. And the nice thing, like I said, you need this team for raids anyways now, but they are technically on the next raid team out, so just be mindful of this when you guys are watching this later on. Check if there's another mutant raid team that has been released, because Extreme X-Men may be the next team to go, but thankfully they still have a lot of good value, as you can see here, even in Dark Dimension. Then you have Global Villains, and man, this was such a fun section because Apocalypse with Cabal plus Lady Deathstrike, just such a fun team. You can also have quite a bit of success with Orcus as well, but I just found for myself, I already brought in Cabal to Dark Dimension 7, so it just made sense for my eyes. That's 1 attack for the first node and then 3 attacks for the second node. Silky smooth, just had tons of fun. There was a lot of control and bleed mechanics, and APOC obviously putting this team over the top here as well. Which then now leads us to the legendary Cosmic, and as you can see, I brought in Skrull, Thanos Endgame, Mephisto, Val, with Old Man Logan. 2 attacks here on Mission 11. Super fun team. You'll find that all these characters need to work together. We had 4 attacks here on the second last node. But overall, I found that you just need to reset a couple times to see to get the right RNG, and this was right before I wrapped up and unlocked Odin. 5 attacks in total for the very last node. So respectable numbers. Like I said, I do feel like if I had to rate the hardest sections that I completed in Dark Dimension 8, would definitely be that mixture of City Villains combined with this final section. There's definitely some importance here, especially some key characters. Could you get the job done without Mephisto? I think so, but probably would have resulted in more attacks. And thankfully, there are some very powerful characters that you can use in this final stage as well, you know, such as Skrull, obviously having Thanos Endgame, Gladiator, energy replenishment, in addition to Val being a very strong character in Dark Dimension. So there you guys have it. Hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this saves you guys time to see the total attacks and the different teams used and which parts I regretted and you know, reflected on. But at the same time, we could have done this more efficiently, but I'm glad at least this is now a record for you guys to review, and hopefully this is helpful in your guys' journey. Good luck with your Odin unlock as well and Dark Dimension 8. Thank you for your time as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.